Welcome into the Friday Night 360 AZ preview show. I'm Jordan Ham alongside Haley Stasiak. Football season is upon us. We are in week 0. Seems like the off season is getting smaller and smaller the more and more we do this. But we have a great show for you. AIA Executive Director David Hines, Castile quarterback Gunnar Cruz, and Pinnacle head coach Dana Zubke will be joining us. A lot of really good games here in this first week. And it seems like just even a couple of years ago, a week 0 game was kind of a rarity, that there'd only be a couple here and there, but it seems like more and more of these teams are trying to maybe even build in a potential bye week, get week 0 going, get the season off and rolling into their routines, and they're off and running. And there are a lot of really good games to preview here.
There really are. And, you know, one of the things that I'm most looking forward to here is just football being back, getting back into the swing of things, getting things going. I mean, we were talking earlier, Jordan, sports are ramping up now. We've had our fill of baseball. We're getting football going now. So I'm looking forward to just things getting back into action.
7-on-7 is great, and talking about transfers is great.
No, it's
and
not.
all this really fun storylines.
I'm not a fan of all that stuff, but
I'm excited that the pads are back on.
Yes.
The helmets are back on. We have some real stuff to talk about, and games are actually meaning something. So that's going to be really fun. So we're going to start things off. As I said, we have AIA Executive Director David Hines coming up in a couple of minutes. We're going to preview a couple of games real quick, just right off the top, jump right into it, and then we'll also kind of touch on a couple other games as we meet with our guests and kind of their games of the week as well. But as I said, quite a few really good games to start off the season with, and we're going to jump in with Chaparral and Hamilton. 6A battle. Chaparral's making the jump up to 6A. Hamilton with a new head coach as well as Chaparral. And I think the story here is, Jack Miller in his first full season with Chaparral, he made the transfer. He missed the first 2 games when he made the jump from SCA to Chaparral. They return a lot of really young talent, but experienced talent. You have Tommy Christakos, who's kind of his #1 receiver, definitely a big-bodied guy. Devin Crawford, a dynamic playmaker for them. Darvon Hubbard, a running back who's committed to Ohio State, as is Jack Miller. And then you have some nice weapons up front as well along that offensive line, and I think a defense that's going to surprise some people. They're returning quite a few guys that I think could really make some noise as well as they navigate through 6A.
with this matchup, I'm looking forward to both of these new head coaches. We spoke with Brent Barnes, Chaparral head coach, last week. He raved about his staff and just the pieces of the puzzle coming together and how that whole group with their players has really come together as one. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the pieces for Chaparral fit together and then how Mike Zadevsky over at Hamilton conducts this. I think this is going to set the tone for both of these seasons.
It's really a unique thing having 2 head coaches start with new teams.
The whole coaching
in
thing, period, all across the state is unique. So, but especially this matchup is unique in that sense.
And we talked with Coach Barnes last week about how do you prepare for Hamilton when they ran a certain system last year and they're going to go more spread, but you haven't quite seen it yet. And I'm sure on the other side for Coach Zadevsky as well, that's the same thing. There are going to be new wrinkles.
These are brand new teams. Yeah. You can't fully prepare for it.
And Hamilton returning a good amount of talent as well. Tyler Shuck has graduated. Jawar Jordan has graduated. Hunter McGinnis has graduated along that offense. But you return Brendan Rice, a big-bodied receiver. He is a really tough matchup. Brandon Shanks is a very underrated tight end receiver type. I'm not sure if he's going to be playing quarterback here early in the season or if he's going to be playing wide receiver, tight end. I know he's kind of been rotating around a couple different spots, but when he's in that wide receiver spot and tight end spot, he is a very, very tough matchup. So this is, I think for high school football fans, this is a matchup they've been waiting for a long time. 2 pretty storied programs coming together, and now that they're both in 6A, it's like, all right, let's go, week 0. Let's start it off. So definitely is going to be a fun game. Marana and Horizon, that's a game you're going to be at.
This is what I've been looking forward to this one since the spring when I went out to Marana, met head coach Lee Ramirez, talked to Trent Morgay, talked to Jordan Morgan. So we did touch on this game a little bit last week, and as I mentioned there, Quarterback Trenton Bourguet is the biggest piece that I'm keeping an eye on with this game, but I'm also keeping an eye on that horizon line, both offensively and defensively, because these guys are built and they're going to be a force for this Marana team.
Yeah, and Horizon, they have a lot of guys moving on that have graduated. Most of them have gone to New Mexico State. I think they had 3 separate players all head that way. They're young, but they still have talent along that offensive line and defensive line. Ty Wisdom is great at coaching up in the trenches as well. And when you look at Marana, you have some really good players along that defense as well. TJ Seffers is a linebacker who I think just really is a guy that makes a ton of plays. And on the Horizon side, defensively, Nash Giffen. He's a linebacker. He's also a running back. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but this is his 3rd year of varsity football, and he's wrestled in the past and ran track, and just a really good kind of embodiment of that program. He's he definitely plays up, and now they're playing in 5A. And another player I want to highlight with Horizon, Cole Johnson, their kicker. I have a feeling that Horizon is going to have kind of that grinded out mentality that they've had the past couple of years. That means there could be some close games. So special teams is going to come up huge, and Cole Johnson was really good for them last year. I was at that Desert Mountain game last year that was just so back and forth, and he was the difference. He kicked a long field goal to go ahead and give them the win, and he just committed to Air Force. So another just factor for Horizon. Last game we're going to preview before we head to break, Brophy and Liberty. A lot of interesting storylines here.
It seems like there's 5 games this week that we're all pretty excited for, and we're going to get to those other 2 later in the show. But this one, as I said with this Chaparral Hamilton game, seeing how Brophy specifically starts out, John Kitna, new head coach there. So seeing how Brophy starts out and kind of resets the tone to get that program back to where it once was. And then Liberty last season, we just saw amazing stuff out of that team and just a lot of talent there. They did lose some guys on the offense, so the defense is going to be their strength this year. But I think that just seeing how, again, we talked about that new program thing. So Brophy's a whole new program now, and you can't necessarily prepare for that. So seeing how these 2 teams come out, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, Brophy returns Marcus White, who, similar to Nash Giffen, it seems like he's been on the varsity level for like 6 years now. But he's a really dynamic safety. Played a little bit of quarterback, played a little bit of wide receiver, is just a really good athlete. Liberty side, Ryan Puskis, Braxton Croto. Those are the 2 names to know on that defense. They're both headed to Cal. Charlie Regal just cleaning up in the recruiting in Arizona really well this year. But this is a team that was so good last year at just winning close games. And it seemed like when they were in 5A, they're in 6A now, but when they were in 5A, you'd hear about Centennial right off the bat. You'd hear about Notre Dame Prep right off the bat, Cienega. It seemed like Liberty was kind of
Liberty stayed in that conversation, though.
Yeah, but I think they were just kind of fine being kind of that, yeah, go ahead and talk about everybody else. We're going to play them. We're going to punch you in the mouth. Yeah, and, Puskis, he can play as kind of up as a linebacker, can play back as a safety, and Braxton Croto is just a really dynamic guy in the front 7 as well. So Liberty never really has an off year either. Even when they're replacing a lot of guys, they are always competitive and just kind of have that tough mentality. So we'll see how they navigate 6A. So coming up next, we are going to have AIA Executive Director David Hines. It's a new school year, so plenty to talk about with him. That's coming up next on the Friday Night 360 AZ Preview Show.